got their phone on silent.
Oh, go Cubs go, baby.
Ready. All right, I'd like to say good evening to everyone tonight. This is our first Facebook Live session. Before we get started, let me first just introduce our panel. Most of you would probably recognize these folks. To our left, we have Miss Melinda Thompson, who is the principal at Decaturville Elementary. And then next to me on my left would be Mr. Hugh Smith, principal of Riverside High School. To my right would be Scott King, principal at Parsons Elementary. And furthest to the right is Keith Walker, principal of Decatur County Middle School. As we have been continuing to work on plans for opening up of our school, we've received several questions from parents regarding our plans and procedures. Our plan for tonight is to give a brief overview of our school plans for reopening and also to discuss our online learning academy. We'll attempt to answer as many questions as we can tonight. Please understand that we may not be able to answer every question tonight, but we will make sure that every question gets answered. You can continue to ask questions by going to capital B, capital Q, DecaturSchools.org. If you will submit those questions, we'll continue to answer them, and we can also post them on our Facebook pages and our websites. So at this time, as we get started, I'm going to let Mr. King begin by giving an overview of Phase 1.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us and coming to check out the information that we have in play. I want to talk for just a moment about our Phase 1. It has two different sections to it, but Phase 1 is where we return to school as is, just in a traditional type schedule. The first part would be where students do come to the brick and mortar, to the school every day. They would receive instruction just like any other day. We do have safety precautions and a lot of areas covered there. You can find those drafts and that information on every school's website. We have a reentry plan that each school has made. It will describe in detail what some of the safety expectations are. I mean, we could go through that tonight, but that would be a lot of time. And we will show what our websites are later tonight. So Phase 1A would be all persons return to the brick and mortar. We believe that the best way for a student to learn is face-to-face. We think that's so important for them to be there, but we also understand in the time we're in that that's not always, some families just are not able to do so, and sometimes we don't feel secure enough to do. So we do have an online option. For that information, we'll share more about it, but there will be an online academy that will be shared about in just a little while. But that is an option for parents and families who may have someone at home who is not comfortable or cannot be exposed to COVID or any of the other things that take place. But when we come back to school on August the 13th, we are coming back in with the mind to have Phase 1, where we all would return into school, or families who chose to do the online option. Coach Walker from DCMS is going to share with us Phase 2 and Phase 3.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, if the situation occurs and we have to go to hybrid schedule, that would mean our students would come to school 2 days a week and be virtual 3 days a week. At pre-registration and registration day, you will be told what days your child would come. We'll have a Schedule A and a Schedule B. Schedule A will come on Mondays and Wednesdays, Schedule B on Tuesday, Thursday, and on Fridays, all would be virtual. And so we can deep clean our schools, and there might be a situation where we may have some students who are struggling, may have them come on those days, on Fridays. That's still to be determined. One thing we have tried to do is that all families, for instance, if you have a child at high school, a child at middle school, or one at elementary, your children will come to school on the same days. In other words, if the high school is a Schedule A, so will the middle schooler, so will the elementary. They will come on Monday, Wednesday, be a virtual on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Like I said, as far as the hybrid part, the online, Coach Smith and I will talk about the online.
Okay, part of our instructional plans for this year is to offer families a free virtual learning option if they choose to do that rather than have their students attend the regular traditional school. Students in grades 1 through 12 will be required to spend 7 hours a day on work for their classes, and for kindergarten students it's 4.5 hours. Students choosing the online option will still receive progress reports and report cards, the same as traditional learning. They will also have all their assignments graded, and assessments will be required and scored. Students may be required to come to school to take their major assessments like 9 weeks test and benchmark assessments, and we'll have more information out about that as we get close to that time. Attendance will be taken. It'll be based on active participation and timely submission of assignments. Students who are participating in the online option will still be able to participate in extracurricular activities and events as long as they're meeting their grade requirements. There will be regular communication between teachers and students and caregivers throughout the school year. Most of the activities in the virtual learning option will be asynchronous, and students can work on them at any order throughout the day. Students need to communicate with their teachers through their Google email accounts, and also will receive information through a Remind app, by phone, and possibly even through some virtual meetings like Google Meet and Zoom. Every effort will be made to keep these communications safe and secure, and students are expected to interact with all of their classes daily in a variety of ways, which may include logging in and working on assignments, turning in these assignments in a timely fashion, and checking in with their teachers daily. Students will complete these assignments as directed by each teacher and then submit them on Google Classroom. That'll be our learning management platform. Caregivers and parents, we ask that you monitor your child's work to ensure that they're spending the appropriate amount of time each day as required by the state, and also familiarize yourself with our learning platforms. And with that being said, Ms. Melinda Thompson is going to talk about some parent nights that we'll have for parents who are choosing the online option to come to the school and get some extra training and support.
Good evening, everyone. We're excited to be able to share some information with you. We know you all have lots of questions, and especially if you choose the online learning plan, you'll have some other questions that we may not answer tonight. So we have some online parent training nights that will be at RHS and DCMS Tuesday, August the 11th at 6 o'clock p.m. Parsons Elementary and Decaturville Elementary will host those nights on August the 13th at 6 o'clock p.m. And then more information later will be shared exactly where those meetings will be held within the buildings. Mr. V will discuss some of our safety protocols that you all are so interested in.
Okay, the first thing I'd like to say is just that our number one priority as we made plans for this coming school year and have the three different phases that are health and well-being of our students, our faculty, and staff. That is our number one priority. We also understand that this is a fluid situation. We talked about that when school starts. We hope that we do start with phase one, where students can come into the schools and we have school as regular as possible with some safety protocols and measures that's going to be taken. Would like to ask that you give us a little bit of leeway as we get closer to time. One of the questions that I've been asked quite a bit, and one that's been sent to our email address, is, are students going to be required to wear a face mask? So the first thing I want to say is that all health, whether it be the CDC, our state health department, any of our medical field, the three things that they say that what we can do to help slow down COVID-19 is to wear face coverings, wash our hands frequently, and social distance. And so, as you guys know, that in school, social distancing we will do as best we can when feasible. We will have opportunities for kids to wash their students to wash their hands, use hand sanitizers throughout the day. Face coverings, we are going to wait until we get a little bit closer to when school starts, whether we decide if that's going to be mandatory or not. I can tell you that with those folks, we actually talked to a lady from Jackson today, a couple hours before, and she recommended, and the question was asked in the 31 states right now that are requiring face coverings. Did that also include schools in those 31 states? And her answer was yes, that it was. So we're leaning that way, but we want to wait till we get a little bit closer, and we'll make that decision as we get closer to time for school to start. So again, other things that we'll do, we'll have daily temperature checks as students come into the building. We're going to check for temperature, and right now the CDC says that for a student to be considered to have a temperature, it's going to be 100.4. So if that happens, then they'll be sent to the nurse's station. They'll be have a place to stay and be away from the rest of the students. We'll call the caregiver and see if they can come and pick them up. So we'll have daily temperature checks. We'll also ask employees to go through a screening. There's a set of questions that each employee will be asked as they get their temperature checked every day, and they'll sign off on those. Are they feeling sick? Have they have certain symptoms that might indicate that they might have some signs of COVID-19? So our employees will go through that as well. One of the things we've purchased through our CARES Act is some disinfectant HDQ guns that every day as the students leave the buildings, every classroom will be disinfected, sprayed down with these disinfectant guns. It'll take approximately 15 minutes. There's no wiping down or whatever, and it's supposed to kill the COVID-19 virus. So we're also going to make sure that after each route that our buses are wiped down and cleaned. So we have several safety protocols that we plan on using. Again, regardless whether we say we're going to wear a mask or we're not, we know we're going to make some people happy, some people not. We just ask that you bear with us as we get started. If it'll really depend on how COVID-19 is in our community, what we may decide for any given period while we're attending school. Another question that's been asked a lot is what do we do if a student or a staff member is suspected of COVID-19? If they're suspected of COVID-19, then we're going to follow the CDC guidelines. We'll separate them from the rest of the students. We'll call their caregiver. Then we'll ask the parents if they would to maybe have them looked at by a doctor or whatever. They could stay home and see if they're going to have some symptoms. If not, they'll just follow our board policy for returning to school. If they do test positive, then it'll be a minimum of 10 days before they could return. There's three things: at least 10 days. They would have to feel well and have no fever for the last 72 hours. So another question is how do we determine if someone is being exposed to the virus? The health department says that a person is exposed if they are within 6 feet of a known person with COVID-19. So you're exposed if you've been around a person who's known to have COVID-19 for at least 10 minutes at a time, 10 minutes or more, 6 feet. So if that happens, then the schools will work with the health department. We may get a call if we do get a call from a parent or from the health department saying that we have a student that has been tested positive, then we'll work with the health department to determine what steps are needed next. There could be a possibility if your child might have been determined that they were exposed with that student, it may be necessary for your child to be quarantined, but we will work with the health department and work with them on the contact tracing. So those are just some of the areas that we're trying to make sure that we stay as safe and COVID-free as possible. Again, we know that the likelihood of a student coming to school that's been tested positive, they may not know it at the time, but we anticipate that we will have some cases like that, and we will just follow the CDC guidelines. At this time, we're going to talk a little bit about registration, and that'll be Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. V. One of the reasons why we decided to move up registration is so that we would get some numbers to help us figure out the number of students who will be moving to the online platform. And to do so, that's the reason why we moved it up to the 28th. And that will answer a lot of questions for us as principals. When we start looking at whether we're just going to have one online teacher or if we're going to have every teacher doing it, that has a lot to do. So we encourage you on that early registration date to come, 7 to 7 at your school. It's really, really important that you do so. We will also have a registration, a regular registration, on August the 4th for those who by chance couldn't make the 28th. And it will go from 7:30 to 11 o'clock that day. Now, also one of the things that was put out by the principals this past week was we're doing a split first days of school. We moved it back to the 13th and 14th to give our teachers an opportunity to prepare a little more for virtual learning. But on the 13th will be half of the students, on the 14th will be half. When your child registers on the 28th or the 4th, you will be informed of whether they're an A day or a B day. We're going to follow that in the idea, so if we ever went to a hybrid schedule, you would already have an understanding that A is this day, B is this day. And we have also taken the precaution to make sure that we have same families, even if they have last names, on the correct day. We've spent a lot of time planning that. One of the questions that we had seen that was sent into the BQ at DecaturSchools.org page was, will everybody start school on the 17th or will it be hybrid? No, the only hybrid dates we have at the beginning are the 13th and 14th. That's to allow for smaller groups to give us a chance to go over the procedures and the expectations for students and some of the new safety precautions that we put into play. All students that are doing in-person will attend on the 17th. They will be there on the 17th. So at this time now, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to answer some of the questions that we're giving through the the email address. We do encourage you to continue sending those questions to us, and somebody will get back to you. You can also send them through the Facebook page. We have 4 people who monitor that and will pay attention to that. Ms. Melinda is going to read the different questions, and then one of us are going to take time to share the answers with you.
Okay, and these questions are in no particular order, so we may jump back and forth just a little bit, but we do intend to answer as many of these questions that we haven't answered already. Some of those have been answered in the comments that have already been made. One question said, will online learning function similar to how college online courses do? Mr. Smith, you want to answer that?
Yes, they will be similar in nature in that the student will have to log in. They'll get their assignments from their teacher. There will be probably a warm-up activity, a bell ringer, a wellness check, and then probably a 30 to 40 minute recorded video lesson, and then 30 to 45 minutes of independent practice, which could entail reading, writing, and other activities related to that lesson.
Okay, do you want to address the time requirements here? Because even though children are required to do, say, 7 hours of schoolwork, what does that include?
Yeah, so think about a typical school day for a student. They're going to have math, English, science, social studies. And so let's just take their math class, for example. If that's a 70-minute block of time for instruction, then the first 10 minutes, again, would be for a wellness check, a bell ringer, which could possibly be a review, a skill check, something to introduce the lesson. And then they would receive probably 30 to 40 minutes of recorded instruction that they can follow along, and then they would have some time after that for independent practice again.
Okay, thank you. Another question we had says, is there a possibility to start off with the hybrid system since cases are rising dramatically right now? As of now, we are planning to start in phase 1. Another question says, if we start out sending to school, can we switch to virtual? And the answer is yes, one time per semester, and there may also be case-by-case scenarios where a student may be required to quarantine and online may be the option at that time. Will we have the option to decide after Christmas? Yes. What is the plan for kindergarten? I'll answer part of this, and Mr. King can answer part of this, but the plan for kindergarten on the traditional setting is similar to that of all the other grades. It's going to look very much like it does any other year. Of course, we'll have those safety protocols in place as much as we can. We'll do the temperature checks. We're going to encourage the kids to learn how to wash their hands correctly, keep their hands away from their faces, to respect others' private properties and their spaces. So those things will be taught explicitly so that the students hopefully will adhere to those. And then we're going to also, social distancing is something that in a traditional setting it won't be possible to do all the time. We'll do what we can. We have those plans in place, and you can see those on our Return to Learn plans that are on each of our websites. Do you want to address some of this?
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions that I get all the time, and even from our kindergarten teachers. Our first 3 years are so important for our students to be in school, to be able to learn to read, to be able to learn to do some of the basic foundational skills that we have to do. So we've taken those safety precautions to make sure that we can bring them in. But as far as our schedule, we're still going to have the small groups. We're going to have those individual times where our teachers are working to help lay that wonderful foundation for our students to go. Like Ms. Melinda said, when you go online and you look at our safety precautions, we've tried to think of things. We've tried to make sure we've covered areas. As with everything, we know there may be some things we're going to have to go back and reevaluate. But as Mr. V just laid out at the beginning, we are trying to do everything to make them safe, but to give them the best education possible.
Thank you. If we have more than one in school and we feel like one could safely do traditional school, but the other would be better off with remote learning, could we do that?
Yes.
Absolutely. Are the parents going to be kept up to date with any changes that have been made during the year?
Yes, those students who are online or hybrid, as they come to, they're going to come to the schools to pick up different announcements that have been laid out. That way they'll be informed of different activities that are taking place.
Why don't you guys go ahead and tell them all the different ways that they would be able to communicate with us through Facebook, and Scott said he was going to have, later on, he's going to have the websites, but we have our Remind apps.
We've just finalized a plan that we had to send in the state about communication. And so our websites are going to be used. We have Remind. Most people may not have the internet, but they do have the capability to receive text. So each school principal is setting up a Remind account that is separate from the teacher's account. That way we will be able to get information out, but we will still use our Blackboard Connect, which is our all-call, and those things. So we're trying to lay out as many possible ways to get information, but we will also share with the radio station and with the news leader to make sure that it's in newspaper.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Okay. All right, our next question is about truancy. It says, as a child may be exposed more than once and somewhere other than school, if they are asked to quarantine, are they eligible to go back to school since you are trying to limit flip-flopping? The answer is yes. It'll
be a case-by-case
Case-by-case.
basis, yes.
In the lunchroom, social distancing protocol, and will there be more supervision?
At Decatur County Middle School, as far as our lunch schedule, I've tried to stagger it where all of one grade will not be there at one time, and hopefully that will cut down on the social distancing.
The same thing for Parsons Elementary. We're going to expand when we start lunch and end lunch. We're going to have a little more supervision in there. We know that we're going to have seating places where we may leave spaces in between each kid. We've just taken some precautions to expand the area or to eat in another room with their class at a social distance place.
And at Riverside, we're adding a fourth lunch, moving from 3 to 4 lunches, which will reduce our number of students in the lunchroom from about 170 down to 120, where we can have only 3 or 4 students per table. There will be additional cleaning between each lunch period, and we will have additional staff supervising.
Okay. That's very similar at Decaturville Elementary. We have extended our lunch times a bit. We're trying to keep one grade level per 30 minutes in the cafeteria. Students will have assigned seats, so we'll know where everyone's sitting every day, and we'll have extra supervision as well. Car rider pickup. Kids are always bunched together. The protocol for distancing.
Once again, as far as Decatur County Middle School, at the end of the day, we'll have a place for instance, 8th grade may be in the gym, 7th grade in the cafeteria, 6th in the lobby, and 5th outside. I know it's not the ideal situation, but instead of having 100 kids together, we may just have 20. We have, and we'll have walkie-talkies. That way, it'll speed up the process as the car rider line is moving.
And for us at PES, it's going to be, we still will do car riders the way we did last year as far as where. We just know when sitting in the hallways, we're going to have more observation and supervision for them to make sure that students are not congregating in huge groups.
And for us, we have bus riders dismissed at 2:45 and then car riders at 2:50. And during those first days of school with a staggered schedule, there's going to be a lot of communication and coaching of our students about social distancing in the hallways. And I know the 6 feet requirement may not always be feasible, but at times 3 feet may be, or an arm's length away, and just practice that those first few days as we dismiss. And also, where our car riders are picked up, we have a very long walkway that's covered, so there's plenty of room to spread students out in the car rider line as they get picked up.
One thing I failed to mention, a class change at the middle school. We'll probably change like 1 grade at a time, and that will cut down on how many people are in the hallway.
Okay, and the same at Decaturville Elementary as far as dismissal. We will do the same procedures that we've done in the past. We'll use the walkie-talkies as we load car riders. We'll try to spread our students out a little more into the gym and in the lobby to give more space between students at that time, as well as the buses and then the ones that go to after school and smart school. Our next question is about hand washing. It says, will hand washing be made more readily available?
Yes, we have ordered several new hand washing stations. I believe each school is at least getting one. And as far as hand sanitizing stations, I know at the middle school we're going to have one outside each classroom and outside the gym doors, library. And I believe the other principals are doing the same thing.
The hand washing stations that Coach Walker's talking about, for some of the schools, they've been there for 20, some even longer maybe. And when he's talking about a hand washing station, it might be like at Riverside. They're between the male and female restrooms, and there's like 4 different spigots or whatever to wash their hands. And over the years, some of them have quit working, so we're replacing those. So there's going to be more stations. So when Coach Walker says that we're getting a new station or a couple new stations, that's 8 to 12 more places where they possibly could be washing hands. We've spent, again, some of our CARES money on updating those facilities as well.
I think at all the schools as well, we'll make sure that the soap dispensers are checked probably more regularly than they have been in the past, and that those are kept full.
Yeah.
And paper towels will be checked. We just encourage the students to be responsible with that. Throw the paper towels in the garbage can, not down the commode. That'd be appreciated.
Right.
Middle school.
Okay, this one says, my child participates in a school sport. I have since made the decision that due to the uncertainty of COVID that we will be doing virtual learning. I see no point in keeping my child out of in-person school just to let her go to practice where she will have to have close contact with other kids. With that being said, she will be dropping out. According to the team rules, if a student drops out or gets kicked out, they will not be allowed to try out next year. Considering the situation, will she be able to try out for the team again?
Once again, any sport, middle school, high school, if there's a situation like this, I encourage you to talk to your coach because these are definitely different circumstances. Just talk to the coach, and things should work. Things should work out.
Within the document regarding the general protocols for the virtual learning, there is a reference to the student being required to spend a minimum of 7 hours daily working on their schoolwork. Are parents required to come up with busy work if the assignments are finished in less time?
No, parents would not be required to come up with busy work. We want only quality work, and there will be, as I mentioned earlier, about 10 minutes for a warm-up activity, bell ringer, wellness check, 30 minutes to 40 minutes of recorded instruction, and then 30 to 40 minutes allotted for independent practice, for research, writing, reading, whatever is related to that activity.
So I want to just add to that too, that when you hear that 7 hours are required, that's not something these principals decided on their own. This is a mandate from the Tennessee Department of Education. So for us to be able to receive our BEP funds, our federal funds, and those kinds of things, there are certain things that we have to let the state know that we are doing our best to educate our students. And so part of that is that students have to be in school for 7 hours. That's grades 1 through 12. Kindergarten is 4 hours. So 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours.
It's 4.5 for kindergarten, 7. So when we say 7 hours and you're thinking online, that's not 7 hours on the computer. Just as in a classroom, it's not 7 hours that they're listening to a teacher lecture or whatever. That there's lessons to be done, there's reading, there's papers to work on, assignments to do. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands when you think, what are they thinking? My child has to be on there for 7 hours. That was not a decision that was made by these folks up here. It was the TDOE, Tennessee Department of Education.
Thank you. Regarding the above question, are high school students that have a reduced number of classes required to complete the 7 hours daily?
Well, our board policy is that all students have to be enrolled in at least 5 classes, and so we do have some seniors that take part of their classes here at Riverside and transition to the college or the technology center to take classes as well. But every student is required to take at least 5 classes during the year and meet all their graduation requirements. So they will have the opportunity to work on that online as well.
Will band be an option to participate in through the online module?
Yes, students can still participate in band. They will have to attend practice. And there are, just like with our sports activities right now, we have National Federation of High School procedures, safety procedures in place. And the band has also National Federation of High School procedures in place for band and cheer and dance and all of our extracurricular activities.
So that answers the next one. Will band be an option at all this fall due to the nature of the program? And yes.
Yes, it will be an option with additional safety procedures.
If a student is required to be quarantined due to the exposure of COVID or a positive test, how will it affect their attendance/grades, etc.? Will they be expected to continue attendance through the online module regardless of their enrollment status?
Well, once again, the attendance will be excused, and when the child is able, if they're in school, brick and mortar, they'll have the 3 days. But once again, I'm sure our staff will work with your child regarding this if the child's putting forth the effort. So once again, the attendance will not be an issue. It will be excused, and by policy, I believe it's 3 days afterward, 3 days when the child gets back. So, but once again, I'm sure our staff will work with you.
And guys, understand too that some students may be quarantined, may be at home and feel absolutely fine. There are some students, some folks. My family, pretty much out of my immediate family, 5 of us, 4 of us have had COVID, and 1 has not. And one of the ones that did have COVID was asymptomatic, meaning that they never knew they had anything at all. They had no symptoms whatsoever. So there may be cases that they can't come to school, but they can continue to work because they're going to feel fine. So yes, and of course we won't know that. You guys will know that at the house. And like Coach Walker said, 3 days after they return, then they'll be expected. And if you are doing the online learning academy and you come down with COVID and you don't feel well and you're not able to get on the computer and be counted present while you're doing online, that's the same. You'll get excused just as if you were coming to school. If you have COVID-19, you won't be expected, if you're not feeling good, to do those online courses. Another question I think was asked is, what if we have a student that is doing brick and mortar, they've been attending school every day, all of a sudden they may be one of the students that comes down with COVID-19 and they have to go home. Can they do online learning? I guess we call that remote. Is that what you were saying? We would say remote learning because we're expecting you'll come back eventually. So instead of staying there and doing online the rest of the semester or whatever, so if a student is doing brick and mortar, the traditional phase 1, and they get sick and have to go home or just be quarantined, maybe not get sick, they can do remote learning that way as well.
Okay. So for students without internet access, will there be an option for packets for the assignments?
We're not going to do packets this year, and that comes from the Commissioner of Education. She has asked for us to look at doing online opportunities for students. For our students who do not have internet, we have compiled a list of hotspots of where you could go and download the material, and then it will be accessible to work offline. It would still give students the opportunity to fulfill their assignments. So we will have a list that will be found on each of the school's websites that will detail where you can go, sit in the parking lot, tag into their internet to be able to download the assignments. Then you could go back to your house and be able to work through the assignments because they would be available without having the internet at that time. Then you would come back later on in a few days or whichever the case may be, and then all of that would upload back to our Google Classroom platform so teachers would be aware of everything. I'm going to touch on that because our teachers will be in contact, or our assistants, somebody in our school will be in contact with students every day. For those who do not have the internet, you will receive a phone call. We will be in constant contact with students to keep up with them, not just from the academic sense of things, but also for the whole child, the social, emotional side of it, just to check in to see how they're doing.
And so also, let me just say too that those parents out there that are listening to this, and it sounded like French what Mr. Scott just got finished saying, you may be like me, not real tech savvy. That is why that we're going to have some meetings at the schools for those that might be interested. So you might not understand, well, what do you mean that it'll upload? How's that going to happen? So if you are a parent that feels that it's important that your child go to the online academy instead of doing the traditional phase 1, then I suggest that you do that. We're also working on maybe having some opportunities for students to be able to come back into the building. Parents may not feel comfortable with them coming into the school with the entire student body being there, but during after school times, you may be able to come in and use the computer labs. We also are working on where pre-K used to be in Parsons. We're looking at opening that up for a lab, maybe in the evening some. It'll definitely be a hot spot that you can come in and work within your car or outside around the building. but we also are hoping that we can open that up and allow students to come in and use the computers there as well.
Will dual credit classes be available through the online module option, and will the time spent on these classes count toward the required 7 hours?
Yes, they will.
Is it possible to postpone the beginning of the school year until our area's cases quit climbing so rapidly, such as starting after Labor Day?
And we know right now that the situation in Tennessee, that the cases are going up. Again, we know this is a fluid situation. Our plan right now, what we want to be able to do is be able to start school in phase 1. And if things change, we may have to make, we may have to change phases. But right now, our plan is to start school in phase 1 in traditional.
August 13th.
August 13th, that's correct.
How will school club meetings and events be conducted, or will they be allowed?
Yes, we will still have our school club meetings. We have an activity period scheduled on Friday. We have a cafeteria that normally can hold up to 270 people. Obviously, we won't have that many in there, but we have 40 to 45 tables that we have in the cafeteria. One student can sit per table. Also, we have a gym, so we do plan to continue to have our club meetings just with social distancing.
Coach Walker, when is 5th grade orientation?
5th grade orientation and RHS's freshman orientation for girls will be August 3rd. DCMS 5th grade orientation will be at 6, and RHS freshman orientation for girls will be at 7. On August 4th at 6 o'clock, DCMS boys orientation and RHS freshman boys orientation.
You want to address our
Yeah.
kindergarten?
And at the elementary schools this year, we're going to do something a little bit different. Where in the past it's been for everyone to come, but this year we're going to do kindergarten students and new students to our school. That will be August the 11th, and it will start at 6 o'clock. But again, it's going to be different this year at our elementary schools. It will include just kindergarten and new students to the system.
Kindergarten and new students only for elementary.
Yes.
Back to school now.
And also back to the 5th grade orientation for girls or boys. It's for 5th grade, but any other new student to the system is allowed to come also.
Is that the same way? for high
Yes.
school? Okay, if a child has to miss due to the coronavirus, will someone be able to pick up classwork or complete online so the child doesn't fall behind on their work? Base this on the assumption that the child feels like doing the work, and we may have already answered
Yes,
that
then
question.
Mr. B.
Yeah.
Okay, my daughter will be a senior with only one required class at the high school. She's wanting to do that class virtually to reduce her interaction at the high school. However, that hasn't been addressed in the guidelines for virtual learning. Can you explain how that would work and whether that would affect her college classes that she has to take?
She could still take the class at Riverside online if she chose to, and the college classes as well. Again, that board policy 4.605, they have to be enrolled in at least 5 classes, and that can be a combination of our classes offered here at the school or virtually, as well as the college classes or the vocational school. Just the state board policy is they have to be enrolled in a senior math class and a senior English class. So yes, they could take them all online.
What kind of social distancing practices do you plan on implementing in the schools, and will the buses run as normal?
As far as social distancing in the schools, we've addressed that fairly well. As far as buses, my understanding is they're going to run as scheduled. There'll be extra cleaning when the students get on the bus. There'll be hand sanitizer will be used, and also after each route, the morning route and evening route, the buses will be cleaned, sprayed down, probably with the same material that we're using in the schools. That's what we hope. And as far as the social distancing on the bus, I mean, it's going to be pretty tough on the bus, but I'm sure the bus drivers will have the families trying to sit together.
I think assigned seats on the bus is going to be key.
Yeah.
Yes, and the students do have assigned seats, but
Right.
they may put the families together if they can get along long enough.
Exactly. Okay, we have a couple more questions here. I think this one may have been answered to some extent. what would 7 hours of instruction feel like to the kid? What's expected? What supplies? What time does she need to be on the online class?
Again, a lot of that, the 7 hours of instruction, as Mr. Smith had already talked about, and I'll talk about it from an elementary point of view. Again, it's not 7 hours of sitting in front of the computer. There may be a recorded video and then some independent work, or for them to go and do some reading. That's referring to our third and fourth, but in our others, there may be some videos that will teach them. There's even a section in there where we do encourage parents to work with their students, working on the foundational skills like decodables and phonics, of working on the mouth movements and modeling that. What's expected, it's still going to be a rigorous learning opportunity. It will be what they're doing in the classroom, but it will just be on an online feature. And supplies, they're going to vary. I mean, we know you're going to need a computer. You're going to need to make sure that you've got the internet, if that's possible, there at the house. And so those are what we're looking at there.
As they mentioned earlier, I mean, it's not going to be like it was last spring. I mean,
No.
work will be graded, to be held accountable. So I just want to make sure we understand that.
Okay, I have one last question. It says, we have had 2 positive tests in our house this week, and so we'll still be quarantined on the date that we're supposed to be there to register. Can you let me know what I need to do? And I think we covered it already.
We'll have a second registration day on Tuesday, August the 4th, or they could just contact the school and make arrangements to register at a more convenient time. We can have someone pick up their packet and return it as well.
Absolutely. That's all the questions that we had to answer tonight, so.
Okay, in closing, one of the things I'd like to say is that there's a few things I want to make sure that you take away from this tonight. First of all, everybody that you see up here has worked tremendously hard, and no way to keep up with the hours that these men and women have been working to try to get schools going and being safe. Every one of us up here has children or grandchildren in the school system. If not, they have spouses that teach in the school system. So please understand that it's as important to us to make this as safe as possible, to make it COVID-19 not be play havoc on our educational system. That's one of our goals. And please understand that, again, I want to just say that the health and well-being of our faculty, staff, and students, that's our number one priority. And we want everybody who comes back to school to feel safe. And if there are some students, and we hope there's not a lot, we believe that the best way to teach students is face-to-face. So we hope that most students will be able to return to school, and we hope that they'll be able to feel safe. We also, regardless of what phase we're in, we want to limit the impact, and that's going to take everybody. Asking students to work hard, parents to help as much as they can, and just to be patient as changes will happen. We understand that there's no way, whatever decisions are made, that everyone's not going to be happy. Do we start school on time? Do we start with phase 1? Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? All of the different things that are going to be coming our way, decisions that are going to have to be made. There will be some folks that are happy with it and some folks that are not. So we just ask that you give us patience and grace when we mess up, because there will be times that this guy right here will probably make some mistakes. So just be patient with us. And again, I want to reiterate what Coach Walker said a minute ago too. Our online academy, folks, is not going to be anything like that we've had in the past. Mr. Smith went over the expectations of the students and of the caregivers. You can find that on the websites. Guys, it's everything that the teachers send out on the computers is going to be graded. You're going to be tested, and it's completely different than the way school ended in March. So just please keep that in mind. And again, safety is our number one concern. We're sure there's probably more questions out there that maybe didn't get to us you may have new questions as you listen to us speak about our plans tonight. We want to answer as many questions as we can. I feel like another thing that we've tried to do is we value what you parents think, what you've told us in the surveys that we've given out, how you would like school to start and those things. And again, not everybody agrees, but we are doing our best to listen to you guys, trying to communicate everything we can to you in a timely fashion. And I felt like these guys to the right and left may have listened, and as they made their plans, they've kept those things in mind. It is going to be different. We know we're in unprecedented times, and this calls for us to come together and to work together and to make this the best school year that we can. Again, I want to thank the guys and ladies to the left and right of me for their hard work, and a lot of people besides these folks right here that have worked tremendously hard to help us get school ready. And so the last thing I'm going to do is turn it over to Mr. King. He's going to put up the websites and may have a couple other things he wants to say.
I'd just like to remind you all, if you go to our websites, you will find what each school has as their reentry plan. It goes over what they're doing in each individual school. But as you also read through there, it will answer some of your questions as far as what does the online do. It breaks it down a little bit more for you. Like I said, we could read that to you, but it's just as easy for you guys to go and to find that on the website. Please feel free to continue emailing to bq@decaturschools.org. That way we can have a list of those questions, and that way you will get replies back from one of us or someone there at the central office. Our goal is that we're able to re-enter school to do it in the safest form fashion. That way our students can continue learning. Again, go to our websites, check them out, let us know what your questions are, and please feel free to do so. We need to have that.
And if you have some folks that said I don't have Facebook, I didn't have the opportunity to see the Facebook Live today, Mr. King is going to have this record. He has recorded it, and it will be sometime after 12 noon tomorrow. He'll have it on all the schools' websites. So if you didn't get to watch the entire thing, you can go back to the websites tomorrow and watch any part of this that you'd like to. So again, thank you. Do we have any last comments from anybody? Thank you and good night.
Supper time.